And so, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Rebuilding Student Motivation and Connection, 5 Measurable Moves using the Thrively Connections tool. My name is Dr. Marion Smith Jr., Chief Learning Officer at Thrively and former teacher, school principal, superintendent of schools, and assistant state superintendent. And for tonight, I have the pleasure of being the host for our session. We're thrilled to have you here with us. First, I just want to thank you all for just saying yes. Yes, for allowing yourself permission to be here right now, especially during this time in the school year. We know your time is extremely valuable, and we're extremely grateful you chose to spend a little time with us today. But before we dive in, let's pause to have a quick check-in and a type of recalibration. All right, quick check-in for everyone. How are you feeling and functioning right now? So this can be either professionally or personally. I invite you to pause and reflect. Take a look at the GIFs on the screen. Then if you are in a place to do so, feel free to type your name, your location, and the number of the visual that you feel captures how you may be feeling and functioning right now. And so I'll model the way for us. My name is Marion. I'm in Prince George's County, Maryland. And right now, I would say I am a number 3. And so, Kathleen, I'm curious, what about you? What's your number?
I think right now I would definitely be after the crazy trying to get into this number 7.
There we go. Exactly. But I do appreciate our connection, our professional relationship, texting back and forth and just making it work. And so,
Good.
name in the chat, the number, your location. I see those coming in. Thank you all for joining us. And so I just want to take a few minutes also for a quick recalibration. I like to say after 20 plus years in K through 12 education that our collective work isn't about helping students fit into systems that already exist, right? It's about being able to create those conditions for learning that really disrupt and dismantle the inequitable systems, policies, practices, and procedures that challenge the status quo. And it's that belief and that practice that brought me to Thrively. So today, we're going to explore what it looks like when that philosophy becomes real action in schools, right? Because at the center of all of this work is one powerful question we actually ask at Thrively, and it's 4 words. What's wrong with you? It's a simple question, but oftentimes in education, it represents a powerful shift for educators. For a long time, in schools, we've organized ourselves around a different type of question, right? It could be what's wrong or what's missing or what needs to be fixed. So oftentimes this deficit first perspective can quietly shape how our students begin to see themselves and what they believe is possible for them. So Thrively continues to support schools and school districts across the country with this paradigm shift from what's wrong with you to what's strong with you. Because when students can name their strengths, their needs, their interests, their aspirations, their well being is supported, hope is instilled, and they have that trusted adult in the school, they begin to see themselves through the lens of possibility, ability, and purpose, and not limitations. And this begins to fundamentally change how students think, how they act, and how they engage, and ultimately how they begin to lead their own learning. So in the chat, I'll be placing some links to a few resources. One of them will be this What's Strong With You poster. If you like it, we'll include that in the chat as well as in follow-up resources for you. And now let's take a look at what you'll walk away with today. I like to be very clear and explicit. So by the end of our time together, you'll be able to do 4 things. You may be able to do more than these 4, but we're going to focus on these 4. So the first is being able to name and explain why motivation drops when hope and connection are low and how this impacts effort, behavior, and achievement. Second, you'll have an opportunity to recognize those early warning signs of student disengagement. Third, and this is probably the highlight for me as a former secondary English teacher, incorporating 5 research-informed hope moves to increase student motivation, persistence, and engagement. And then lastly, being able to apply the Thrively Connections tool to strengthen student-adult relationships that directly raises student hope and effort. So I like to say, whether you're a classroom teacher, a counselor, an administrator, or somewhere in between, this webinar is for you. So with the logistics in place, let's shift from the how and the what of today to the who so you can get to know the leader of our learning session. And so I want to introduce our guest speaker. And so Cathleen Beachboard is a teacher, author, and researcher. After adopting 5 children out of a case of extreme abuse and neglect, Kathleen has been on a mission to improve outcomes for those who experience trauma and anxiety. Kathleen has taught secondary English, whoop, whoop, former secondary English teacher here too, for over 20 years. She also works as a researcher holding a master's in psychology and is working on a doctorate in positive psychology. Her research focuses on psychological tools schools can use to help students and staff increase psychological hope, resiliency, achievement, and happiness. And so you can learn more about Kathleen's 2022 book, The School of Hope, and more about the science and psychology of hope as a cognitive trait by clicking on the links that we'll place in the chat. And so with that, Kathleen, the virtual floor is all yours.
Woohoo! Hey everyone. It was a great day teaching and now I'm here and I am still in the classroom. I do want to say that I am still in the classroom. I might be an educator, author, researcher, all that fun stuff, but first and foremost, I am a teacher and I will stay in the classroom because I love what I do. But what we do as teachers and educators, it's changed because the world changes. But the one thing that really hasn't changed is where hope stems from. And hope, like Marion said, is a science. And so I have lots of tools for you and I have a presentation for you. This is not a normal presentation. It's sort of interactive because I want you to see that these things work and they do. But it's all based off of one fundamental principle. In education, we all know the power of a relationship. And relationships are paramount for any person to grow. Think about yourself. Right now, you're sitting in this webinar. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, if you've had a relationship that changed your life, okay, one relationship, just one, it could be more than one. I want you to put a yes in the chat. Just want to see the, okay, we've got one. Come on. If you've had okay, thank you. I was waiting for that. And I was just proving my point as a hope researcher, because if there was a lot of no's, I would have been like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. So we learn to have hope from our environments. It is not something that we inherit. It is something we learn. And because it's something we learn, it's something that can be taught. But here's the thing, your hope level correlates to your attachment style. And so when we have kids who are disengaged, usually they're pretty low in hope and they're harder to reach. And I know this because with my own kids, when they showed up with their trauma and their anxiety and everything they've been through, it was harder to reach them. And it's not a matter of we can't reach them. It's a matter of doing it differently and utilizing the principles of psychology to help reach them so that they can have that relationship, so that they can attach to us. Because when you think the world is unsafe, are you going to attach to a person? The answer is no. So without further ado, I'm going to paste a link in the chat for everybody. And this is a link to the presentation, but you guys can click on it, save it for later. I want you to actually watch me with the presentation because I have questions and stuff, but I wanted you to have the whole thing. And they'll also send it out with the resources later, like he promised. He will. He's a good guy. So they're going to send this out, but I want you to have it so you have all of it, so you can go through it and we can talk about these principles and things. All right, so without further ado, here we go. Share. Yay, I love sharing in the small little screen. My students love it too. All right, so these are 5 measurable hope moves using the Thrively's connection tool. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing because it's based off of that concept that once you have a person or a connection that is paramount, you are more likely to go to school. You're more likely to engage in school because you think you have someone helping you and fighting on your side. So we're already on the presentation. Skip that. All right. So quick question. The students we struggle to reach. Some of these might sound familiar to you. The quiet one, the resistant one, the shutdown one, the I don't care one. Do any of those sound familiar to some of you? Which type of student do you feel like you struggle with most based off of these types that I just mentioned? The quiet one, the resistant one, the shutdown one, or the I don't care one? And each one is a different type of hope problem. I just want to say that. So, what right now in the chat, which one do you struggle with the most in your own classrooms or in your own position in education? The quiet one, the resistant one, the shutdown one, the I don't care one. And this is important because I'm going to tailor make this presentation based off of what you guys say. There are certain moves that I know work for all kids, but it is important that we look at what we're dealing with right now. Okay, so right now in the chat, we're going to take a look at those. And it looks like the shutdown one, the resistant one, the quiet, resistant, shutdown. Okay, we're getting a lot of shutdowns. Whew. The shutdown. Okay. All right. So, all right, our shutdown ones. I'm going to pick that as the winner chicken dinner. And we've seen them all. Everybody, if you've been in education long enough, you've seen them all. So the shutdown one, they're not necessarily resistant, but they come in and just to explain the shutdown one, because we've all experienced it. I had a kid the first day before he knew me and how much I love him. He came in and he put his head down. And obviously, you could just become like, what are you doing? Get your head up. But that's not going to get you anywhere. So the shutdown one, or the one who you put something in front of them and they're sort of engaged and they don't do it. It's not that they're resistant, they're just there. So most students, I want to say this out loud, they do not disengage because they can't learn. That's really not the thing. And even if the thing's hard, it's not because they're not hearing you. They disengage because they do not feel seen, they don't feel safe, or they don't feel significant. So if I feel like you've done this a million times and I don't matter at home and I don't matter to anyone, am I really going to check in for your class? The answer is no, I'm not. And so we have kids who don't have relationships. An interesting statistic that I just read for my doctoral stuff that I'm going on. Do you know that there are more latchkey students today than there were in the past 30 years for any other generation? If you don't know what a latchkey child is, that's a kid who basically their parents aren't there. They're getting into the house themselves. They're making themselves dinner. They're taking care of their own business and they see their parents when they wake up, but they have the key to their house and they are the one responsible for them. That's a crazy statistic. So I want you to think about that, because if a child has no strong relationship, and we know also due to technology, kids are more distant and they're not forming strong positive relationships. And because of that, if they don't know how to do something, they have to be taught how to do it. And we can use psychological principles that we know work to help build those relationships. And those relationships, they help build hope, they help the child bloom, and they also help the child engage. Because if you're not investing in your relationship with a kid, they're never going to invest in their education. And I will fight you on that because I know it's true. So with that, and looking at our resistant one, the research is clear. I just wanted to put the research here so that you could see I'm not making all this up. You guys are welcome to go back through the psychological research that we're pulling in on relationships, their importance, and even the tools. You can click on it. You can go to it later. But I wanted you to have it so that this wasn't very science-based. Like it is based on science, but I don't want to specify this study and this study. You're welcome to look at the research. Now, the Thrively connection tool. If you have not seen it, this is a very simple tool, but it's based off of you taking your relationship with a kid and mapping it out. So I'm going to show this short little video so you can see how the tool works, and then I'm going to explain why this is important. At Thrively, we believe that strong, meaningful relationships are at the foundation of a successful education. That's why we built our new connections tool, which is designed to help educators cultivate these essential connections and skills. Using the connections tool is simple. When Thrively users log in, their classes or groups are automatically populated into the tool. Each student or member of the group can be categorized as having a confident,
personal, transactional, or distant relationship with the teacher or administrator. Once a relationship is selected, the teacher or administrator can take detailed notes to explain their choice. For example, if a person identifies a student as a confident student with their relationship, they can pull down specific examples of interactions demonstrating this secure relationship. These notes help educators reflect on their relationships and understand the dynamics at play in the school setting. The same process applies to personal, transactional, and distant relationships. By consciously examining these relationships, teachers and administrators can identify individuals who may need additional support to build stronger connections. This tool is invaluable for ensuring every person feels seen and supported. Administrators can also use this data to ensure that every student has at least one strong relationship within the school. This proactive approach can help increase attendance rates, boost academic success, and enhance overall well-being. Research supports the impact of strong teacher-student relationships on student outcomes. Thrively's Connections tool provides a structured way to foster these relationships, creating a more supportive and effective learning environment.
Okay, so back to the tool itself. This is important. Why is this tool important? Because as educators, like I, for example, have 110 students a day. And it is important that I know which students need me more to build a specific relationship than others. I don't have unlimited time, neither do you. Every educator who's in here, time is our limited resource that we have to use strategically. By tiering our students, the ones who already have a good relationship with you, do you really need to invest in them? The answer is no, because they have that relationship. They know it's already there. It's the ones that are sitting on the outside and they're farther away. Those are the ones who need us. And those are the ones who need tools specifically to help foster a relationship because it's more difficult for them. And that can happen for a myriad of reasons. But it is important that we're intentional with our time so that those kids who are on the outskirts of having a relationship with us have the opportunity to form that relationship. Okay, so now this is why this is really critical, because what gets measured gets improved. If you don't actually look at the relationships you have with kids and determine those kids who are on the outskirts, who we don't know 3 pieces of information about, who we don't know what they do other than their name or a test score, that's a problem. Because once again, once you know that you are struggling with a relationship, even if the kid isn't being defiant and they're just coming in and just not doing the work, if you don't know the kid, then you don't know the story behind the action. And every behavior happens because of something going on with a student. And you've got to know them to know why the behavior is happening. And once you know that, guess what? We can solve that behavior. The solution is once we make relationships visible, then we can say, hey, these out of my 110 kids, these 16 kids are ones who I don't really know. I don't know what they do. I know their name. I know their reading level. That's all I know about them. And then you can purposely use your time during independent learning to connect with these kids and make sure that they get a good relationship. Every child, you can form a good relationship with every person. And I 100% believe that. Yeah, they're going to fight you on it. Even my own children, when they first came here, it's because they didn't think I was safe. But the thing is, with enough time and attention, you can move mountains in connecting with a child. So once it's trackable, then you can start tracking it. So after you know those kids, here is what you'll be able to do today. You're going to leave with 5 moves that build trust. They reach distant students. They increase students' efforts. Because here's the thing. I want you to think about your investment in a relationship with a kid as putting money in the bank. If you want a kid to pay you and pay out all those good test scores, guess what? You have to invest in the child. You can't just invest in their brain. You have to invest in them as a whole person. You put the money in, then the scores and the outcomes will be there. But if they don't feel like it matters to you and you don't care, why would they care? Also, it's going to strengthen their belonging. When they feel like they're showing up because you care about them, they're going to show up more. They're going to engage more. And it'll also improve the emotional climate of your classroom and schools. Because once you get those students engaged who are shut down that we talked about, that's when everything changes for those kids. So, with those 5 moves, the first strategy that we're going to go over today is naming someone's name positively 3 times. I did not make this up. There's plenty of research on it. It's in a great book by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's an oldie but a goodie. So it is important. The sweetest thing to a person is the sound of their own name in their own language. And notice I said in their own language. A lot of the times we say kids' names, we're like Billy, Juan, and we're not even checking that we're saying their names right. That's the first problem. Second thing, when you hear your name, I want you to know what happens psychologically. First, as soon as you hear your name, like, hey, Kathleen, your prefrontal cortex, that's your thinking brain. It lights up. Now, if you say a kid's name and immediately say, Jessica, get to work. Okay, so I want you to see what happens. 2 things happen simultaneously in the brain. I'm going to explain the brain science and how we can use this name thing to our advantage. First, you say the kid's name, Jessica. Her brain lights up and says, hey, pay attention. Let's focus. Let's get ready to learn. It literally does that. But then when you say, get to work, I know that Jessica isn't working, okay? Hear me out. But when you immediately say, get to work, she sees that as you attacking her, and then her amygdala, which is in the middle part of the brain, that's your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and flop response. What it's going to do is, oh, time to shut down. Because it went from, ooh, pay attention, I like this, I'm ready to learn, to shut down. So how do we use this to our advantage when we know that hearing your name can be powerful, but we've been doing it wrong? Because when you redirect a kid with their name and then you say this and it feels like an attack, their other part of the brain is always going to take over, because the amygdala, it's just going to rule that prefrontal cortex and say, hey, we're in danger. This teacher's trying to attack us. Let's shut down. And then they're going to continue to shut down. So here's what we can do with the name. First, I want you to think of positive uses with the name. And you can do this proactively. Instead of when they're already shut down, when they enter your room, I want you to think, what could you do? What are 3 positive uses of that student's name that you could do? I'll give you some examples. At the door, I literally stand outside of my door and I greet every child as they come in. And I say, hey, Jessica, how's your day going? Or I compliment them. I look for one good thing they have going on or something I might have heard about them. Hey, Peter, I heard you did great in the soccer game last night. And I do that with every child intentionally. Now, for those of you who are like, I ain't got time for that, you don't have to do it with every kid. You just said, everybody in here said you have a kid who's either shutting down, who's not connecting, who's being defensive, and okay, that child is the one who needs to hear the name thing the most. So if you're saying you don't have time for all those students, think of those 5, 10, maybe 15 kids. I had 15 at the beginning of the semester. It's whittled down from there. And I want you to say, hey, I'm going to purposely try to say this kid's name 3 times positively during class. And here's what's going to happen. When they hear their name right now, especially if they shut down, because they're doing this in other classes, I want you to think about this. If they're doing it just in your class or where you are, it's happening in other places. And they probably have heard their name with negativity multiple times, especially kids who shut down or are defiant in any way, shape, or form. When you replace that with, hey, Billy, great job on the soccer game. That shows him hearing his name does not have to be defensive. We don't have to use the amygdala at all. You're retraining this kid's brain to have his name do what it's meant to do, which is access the prefrontal cortex. So what we know is if a kid has heard their name multiple times, you say their name purposefully 3 times over the course, and one of the studies in that link research at the beginning, over the course of 10 days. So you have said this kid's name 30 times in a positive manner. It doesn't mean that you didn't have to correct them and say it negatively once. That's fine. 30 times, 30 over 10 days. That child will start to engage with you. And you'll notice they start saying your name with either a question, something that shows they're investing with the class. And this isn't a maybe, this is a research study, ladies and gentlemen. So what we know is if you say the name, you use it positively, you can even keep track on a roster, print off your roster and say, hey, these are the 4 kids, highlight them that you've found in the connections tool that need that extra support, and then track saying their name with something positive. Even something that they did in class and correcting their work. Do it, because if you do it that 30 times, that is how you can help boost a relationship that's on one level to another level, because the kid will see you investing in their name and in themselves. Isn't that awesome? I love that. It's the power of what's in a name, a lot, and especially because it can access that prefrontal cortex for learning. Now, another thing to look for when you're using this to make sure it's working, because some people are like, I'm not sure this will actually work. What you will see is instead of them shutting down, you will see more eye contact. You will see a response. So instead of them not doing their work, maybe they'll pick up the paper. It doesn't mean they're going to change instantaneously where they're furiously doing work after 2 days of saying a kid's name. You'll see participation increase, especially if you increase the name with the positive thing that goes with it, the positive connection, because you're accessing their prefrontal cortex more. And you'll also see those children take a warmer tone towards you. So what would be your first sign it's working? So out of these 4, which one do you think you'll see first? Eye contact, response, participation, or warmer tone? Take a guess in the chat. It might surprise you. All right, we got some. Here we go. Here we go. Eye contact, eye contact. Eye contact. Okay, you guys are good, but the reality is I did not put these in order. The one you will actually see first is a response. So the kids who are usually shut down, they usually don't respond. Oh yeah, whoever said, yeah, Jasmine, you said response. Good job. Okay, so eye contact is actually the second sign you'll see. A response means you say their name and something, and they're going to respond in some way, which means it could be that they head nod. It could be that they go like that, but you will see an indication. It will be an indication non-verbally, I heard you. But it won't be defensive. They won't be shutting down. You'll see they'll be thinking. And it might take them a while, especially for students with disabilities who have processing disorders. You will get a response, but the eye contact, the participation, that might take a little longer. But you've got to start, because when you start, you're more likely to get somewhere with your students. All right, so what's the next big one? With what you're doing with their name, I want you to think about it this way, because this is really important. Brene Brown actually talks about this, that what we're building is micro trust deposits. So when you are reliably consistent with their name as a positive thing, if they mess up, I'm not saying don't say their name, but try to avoid it, because they probably hear it elsewhere. Their name has become associated with, hey, let's be responsive, and not in a good way, where they're amygdala responsive, where they're not paying attention. When you're consistent, when you greet by name, you follow through, and you remember those details that they say, like, hey, nice jacket you wore yesterday, Billy, and I'm saying his name with that. That predictability creates safety in the mind. The marble jar, like if you start just saying, hey kid, blah, 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 and you go back to the way you were, I'm going to tell you, it's like breaking a hole in your marble jar. It takes a while for those micro deposits that you're putting in to build up, to build that neural pathway. So don't expect it to change overnight, because I even told you what was the minimum? 10 days. And that's using it 3 times a day. But every day, I want you to think about it as putting in a marble. The more marbles you put in, the more likely they are to engage and try to form a relationship with you. And that is a game changer. All right, the second one. This is, I cannot take credit for this. One of our founding fathers actually created this whole psychological phenomenon. It's called the Ben Franklin effect. When you want to form a positive relationship with someone, you need to ask them for a favor. What? Yeah. So here's how the mind works. Let's say this kid sees you in a negative light, like this teacher's out to get me, and you say, "Hey, will you water my plants for me?" I'm going to explain why this works. First, your brain does not like when things are out of order. I hate this teacher. She asked me to water her plants, so I'm going to do it. It's going to fight itself and say, wait a minute, if I'm watering her plants and I hate her, why am I doing this? Right? Okay. So what your brain will do, and this is literally, you can look up all the info or check the links afterwards. What your brain will do is after you are asked to do a favor for someone, it is more likely to take that distant student and they will reason out, oh, I'm doing her a favor because I don't hate her that much. Actually, she's a pretty good person. And by asking for a favor, you're actually drawing the person closer because you're showing that you trust them. Because, oh, I need you to do me this favor. Isn't that crazy? Asking a favor causes that. And I want you to think, you probably have a distant student who could probably help you, right? Everybody in here said you've got somebody. So let's think about that. What is one small favor? Because now you're like, this actually works. Yeah, I want you to test it out. Now, does it work instantly? No, you got to ask for favors kind of pretty often, but you're going to see it slowly change the student. I'll give you a great example. I had a student who came to me, and this student came from an alternative school a few years ago, and they had an ankle bracelet, and everyone's like, good luck with them. So the first thing I asked them, I was like, oh man, all my pencils aren't sharp. You look like you're a sharp one. So can you sharpen my pencils? And they laughed and they were like, okay. And this was right when I met the student. And because everybody warned me. So I used the Ben Franklin effect proactively. And he sat and he sharpened 92 pencils. It was a lot. But I'm going to tell you right after that, he took the pencils, he put them up. He wanted to make sure everybody knew where they were and that they were sharp and that he did it. And he felt proud of himself because he did that. And he also looked at me and he said, oh, do you have anything else you need me to do? And he started volunteering more in class. And people were like, that is not the same kid. And it's crazy enough. I asked him to do more favors like watering my plants and passing out papers. What is something you could have one of the students do? And even if you're like, oh, I can't trust them, I need you to invest in trust. Because when you give trust freely, someone is more likely to rise to the challenge. It's like setting an expectation. So I want you to write in the chat, what's one small favor you could ask, because we're all in different classrooms, different parts of the world, from Kentucky to California, we're all here. What's one small favor you could ask a student who's disengaged to do? And then it's way better, and I'm going to say this. So let's say a student is disengaged and they're shut down. Instead of just saying, hey, blah, 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 get back to work, say, oh, could you water my plants for me? I totally forgot this morning. And what's crazy is they'll water the plants and they'll probably come back and do the work. So type your idea in the chat. What is one small favor that would actually maybe help you that you could do in your classroom climate and your classroom culture that you have, that you could ask a student to do the next time they seem kind of checked out? All right, we're getting some good ones. Fix books in a library. Yes, that's a good. Activate the Promethean board. Yes. Please take this to the office. Yeah, and I've got one. I've got a good one for that. Sometimes, like, I'm going to tell you, I have a folder and it's fake. And it just says, give this kid a smile and wave at them. And they take the folder to the office because it's important papers. But literally the paper says, wave at this kid and smile at them. And they go to the office, they give the folder. And guess what? The secretaries do it. And they're like, oh, you're so good. You're so helpful. Some kids need that boost. Bring this to the other class, plug in the Chromebooks. I love you guys. You guys especially plug in the Chromebooks. Let's be honest, the things are never charged anymore. So all of you have amazing ideas. Now you need to use this psychological tool proactively in order to make a difference. And now that you know that this works, and it worked for Ben Franklin for getting the French involved with us during the American Revolution because they didn't want to be involved, but he got them involved because he asked them to do us a favor. And it works because your brain doesn't like saying, I'm doing a favor for this person, but I hate them. They don't go together. So your brain will adapt and change the way they view you because you're asking them to do a favor. Now, with the Ben Franklin effect, I've got to teach you some amazing things. This is Vanessa Van Edwards. She's a social psychologist, and her work kind of intercedes with mine. I want you to know when someone's doing a favor and you want them to talk, like you want them to say something. Let's say they're watering the plants, and you go stand with them and say, "Hey, thanks for watering the plants." One of the most amazing things that you can do is the slow head nod. I want you to think of it about it like if you ever taught English or you know anything about English, dot, 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 also known as ellipses. We know that means to keep going. When we see that, we are more likely to agree with someone, and she'll demonstrate it here. And they're more likely to keep talking, even if they're not talking. They're going to start talking because they feel like that's a nonverbal saying, "Hey, talk to me, open up to me," which is what you need to form a strong relationship.
The triple nod is the universal sign of I'm listening. And what's interesting about it is a slow triple nod. So a 1, 2, 3. They found that if someone does the triple nod, the other person speaks 3 to 4 times longer. So basically, it's kind of like a nonverbal dot, dot, dot. I do want to point out, it is a slow triple nod. There is a difference between a slow triple nod and a fast triple nod. Watch the difference. So slow is I'm interested. Fast is impatience. Like, I know it, I got it, I get it. Okay, move on, right?
Don't do the fast one. That's why she was pointing it out. Because if you do it fast, you're showing that you're in a hurry. And any kid, they don't want to keep talking if they feel like you're in a hurry. Also, this is really important. Back to, hey, kid did me a favor. Let's say you said water the plants and they accidentally watered the fake plant. Ooh, that's not good because you thought they knew the difference. It is important to just remember this as part of these relationship things. When a kid messes up, public regard means, hey, they do a good thing, let everyone in the world know about it. But if they mess up, it needs to be private between you and the other person. Hey, you messed up on this. Let's talk about it. Because they already feel judged. There's a reason kids shut down because they feel like everyone's judging them. That's another big one. And so in order to avoid that, if a kid does mess up when we're doing any of these, like watering a fake plant, remember this rule. Anytime they mess up, please make sure that you are talking to them one-on-one in private. Don't go announcing it. I had a teacher across the hall mess this up the other day and was like, "Kid, you need to stop, blah, blah, blah." If you're doing it that loud, everybody sees it. And that also damages your relationship. So we don't want to damage the relationship that we're just forming. All right, strategy number 3. This is a good one. The human first minute. So a lot of teachers are like, "I've got this great bell ringer and it is on fire and it does this." Okay, with those kids, and it's not every kid, the kids who you don't have a good relationship with, the kids who are distant, who have a transactional relationship, I want you to think about them and I want you to purposely start every interaction. So that's the moment they see you with something not related to school. What? Not related to school, but they've got to do the bell ringer. I understand. Safety starts with belonging. So with those 4 or 5 kids, one thing that you can do purposely, you can still have your bell ringer, but I want you to go over to those kids and ask them a question about something outside of school. So it can be a simple thing from, "Hey, what are you into?" to, "Did you watch the game last night?" It could deal with your interests, but you need to ask them a question that doesn't deal with school and then write down their responses so you remember them. If you ask about a game, if you ask about the sports team, if you ask about theater, if you ask about choir, make sure you write down their responses. Then the next day for those kids, I want you to remember their response. Include it because that shows that you're listening. And then ask another question. You again, print out a roster, know who those kids are, have them highlighted, and do this purposely for a course of 10 days. 10 is the magical number for forming neural pathways. So after 10 days, what you're going to see is you're no longer having to go up to the kid. They're going to start asking you questions the moment that they come through the door. Like, "Hey, I did see the game last night. Did you see it? Can we talk about it?" Also, I want to teach you a psychological hack, and this really works. So let's say a kid's really dysregulated. What we know is when we hold a warm drink, okay, a warm drink like cocoa or hot chocolate or coffee, whatever. If someone holds something warm, warm food, doesn't matter, they are more likely to have their brain signal to them that this is a safe relationship. It's literally like a body hack, kind of like when you like someone, your pupils get larger. We know this. When we feel warmth in our hands, we feel safe. And so if you're having a relationship and you're really struggling connecting with the person, one of the things that I do is I have one of these little warmy things. I warm it up in the microwave and I'm like, hey guys, it's really cold outside because it's winter. I'm going to pass this around to a couple of you. You get the warmie of the day. But I purposely give it to those kids who had trouble connecting. And I give it to them. They hold it for a few minutes. And then I come around and I ask them a question. I'm going to tell you, I've seen this work for myself. Go and try it yourself. You can even get a bean bag, literally warm it up in the microwave. It will not blow up, I promise, as long as you don't have popcorn in it. And then pass it out. And what you're going to see as they use it, or those hand warmers, they're going to have it. And for those kids who are really struggling, they'll start opening up more just because you're doing this little tiny hack with the human first minute. And make sure that first minute is human and connecting to them. So why do you think it's important to start chatting with the hard to reach students instead of going straight into class content? Why is it important to do that extra connection, especially because they're not connecting to you? I want you to write your answer in the chat real quick. Why do you think that is so important? And also, yeah, the warmth, I'm telling you, it is a game changer. So why is it important that we don't go straight into the content? Even though everything we've been told is get into the content, get to the stuff, make sure they learn it all. Oh, I know I'm getting some good ones in the chat. There we go. Because you care, you're supposed to care more about them than the content. And when you activate them early, you get the attention. You guys could do this whole webinar without me. Look at these answers, Marion. This is amazing. It signals that you see them as a person, that you care about them getting better, that it's not about stuffing crap into them, but helping them grow. Because if all you want to do is, yes, and the positive effect, you guys are on fire. So that is why we have to connect first. And we have to do these things because it's important, because that shows the kid they matter. We all need to matter. It is a basic human need. It's on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But if we don't feel like we matter, that's when we shut down. That's when we disconnect. That's when we get angry and become defensive. So what else can we do to help form that connection? Shared goal setting. This one's a hard one, and it comes from the concept that you've seen a lot. So we know that if two people work out, okay, so let's say you and your buddy say, hey, let's go to the gym together. You're more likely to work out because you and your buddy both set a goal to go work out, right? So using that same psychological construct, what you can do is micro goal mapping. So the way this works is you and those difficult students that are struggling forming a connection with you, set a goal together. Together? Yes, a micro goal. That doesn't mean something big like, hey, let's run a marathon with my students. I did that. It is crazy. I don't recommend it. But something you can do is something small, like, hey, tomorrow, why don't you do this? Like, you write that paragraph in your journal, and what I'm going to do, you can't set a fake goal for yourself. It has to be a real goal. I'm going to look up the worst dad joke I can find, and I'm going to put it on the board for you. Cool. I set a goal, they set a goal. I do my goal, they do their goal. And here's why this works. So often in education, you're the teacher, so you're up here because you know everything. You're like AI to them, but they're the student, they're the learner, they're down here. No, in order to form a good relationship, they need to see that you're a person. And in order for them to see that, one of the quickest hacks is they see you learn and grow. And the way you do that is you set a goal, they set a goal. And then you track your goals. And if you did it, oh yeah, I put my dad joke of the day up there. I did it again. I did it 3 days in a row. Did you do your journal 3 days in a row? Awesome. So for that shared goal setting, I want you to think, what is a goal that you could set with a student who's disengaged? What if I have more than one student? You can set more than one goal in your classroom. And it can even be simple things like my seniors are like, man, you usually take 2 days to get essays out. So with one of my students who was struggling to form a connection with me earlier in the year, I said, you know what? I'm going to get all the essays graded in 1 day. And I set that goal. They saw me working on it outside of school hours. And that kid also set a really hard goal that they were going to master the comma splice. Oh, because they had lots of them. They didn't understand how it works. But because they saw me working on my goal, they were more likely to work on their goal, like having a workout buddy. So because of that, the mirror neurons, these are things in our brain. They actually pair up. When you feel like you and someone else are both working on something together, your brains actually sync and they're more likely to achieve. So thinking about this, what are some minor goals that you could showcase? And it doesn't even have to be with one student. You could set a goal in front of the class and then they can set a goal as a class and it'll boost the relationships with all of them. It doesn't have to be with just that one kid. This is almost like a whole class approach. So, what is a small goal you could set? Think about the couple of examples I just gave here. Everything from grading essays in 1 day to, hey, I'm going to try to make class more lively and do a dad joke of the day. What is something small you could showcase your students to your students that you're working on? Because the harder you work to achieve something, they see your humanity and they're more likely to connect with you because they see you as a perfect learner because you're the educator. So this is a harder one. I want you to think about it, but because of the time, I'm going to move on because we started a little late. All right. So also with the goal setting, when you give a person a reason that you want a relationship with them, instead of just saying, hey, kid, let's form a good relationship. Do you know they're more likely to form a relationship with you? And it's from a very simple effect. And they tested this. So literally, you're going to hear this in this video. There were people who had to make copies. Actually, I'm going to just play the video so you can hear it for yourself because you won't believe this.
Humans need reasons. When there is a reason, even if it's a silly reason, it helps us feel more motivated. They found that people who went up to cut the line and said, excuse me, can I make some copies? They got rejected. They were like, no, dude, get in the back of the line. We're all making copies. But if someone said, excuse me, can I make copies? I really have to copy this with a reason, people were more likely to let them cut, even though it was exactly the same thing as the first thing. The point of the study was to show that if you have a because, even if it's a silly because, people are more likely to do things for you. Important point for us is you want to know your why. That's why I said, tell people who you help. If you're a life coach, don't just...
Okay, so with that, instead of just trying to form a relationship, but not telling the kid you're actually trying to form a relationship with them, sometimes the simplest practice can change your connection to a kid. So I went up to a kid, and I'm going to tell you, this girl, she was very, very confrontational. And this was with every teacher she ever met. And this was day 3 of school. And she was like, I don't want to do this. And I went up to her and I said, you know what? I want to form a good relationship with you because I feel like you're totally worth investing in because I see your potential. Notice I gave a because and I explained why I want to form a relationship with her. Do you know that girl stayed after class and she's like, all right, well, let's talk. And that was the first day. All I did was the because, just like this. These people, they were trying to make copies in a copying machine, okay? And they said, oh, can I cut the line? Because I want to make copies. No, they didn't let them. But when they said, oh, I need to cut the line because I really need to make copies, they let them. It's the same thing. All you have to do is explain why. Why is it you want a good relationship with me? And sometimes when a kid just hears it, look, Johnny, I want a good relationship with you because I really want to see you excel in your future. And I know you have that potential. Just hearing me say that, you want a relationship with me because I'm giving you a reason. I'm not just saying I want a relationship because it'll boost your grades and your life outcomes, but you could even say that. You could say that. That's what I'm telling you. Giving someone a reason on why it's important to you, they're more likely to try to connect because they know that you're not just trying it for some random reason to get good grades, good state test scores, that you're doing it because you see something in them and it's worth pursuing. It's a very simple thing. Now, the last really big strategy that we're going to talk about here is the triumph tracker. And basically how this works is we seem to remember certain things more than others. And one of the things we remember is positive affect. And in this case, this is your positive feelings. We also remember negative feelings really well. But with positive feelings, we easily become trained like Pavlov's dogs to associate this with positivity. Like ring a bell, ooh, dinner's coming. So with this, at the end of the week in your class, if you say, hey, I want you to think back on something you feel proud of from this week. It can be anything that we've done, and I want you to write it down. Have the kids write it down as a whole class. Why do you feel like you're successful? And as you do this over the course of a few days, a few weeks, what you're going to notice is as they're tracking their triumphs, that when they start to feel successful, they'll associate you, just like Pavlov's dogs. Hey, dinner bell, time to eat, success. Oh, that came from that teacher. And because of that, they'll start to want to connect with you because they'll see it. And with that, you want to end your classes with some sort of celebration. So on those days of triumph, hey, what are you fantastic and excited about? What is the one thing that you did really well? And you can do different things. I literally have a refrigerator door in my classroom and it's empty, okay? Literally like a real one. And the kids, it has magnets just like you would at home. What we use the refrigerator door for in my house was to post things we were proud of. So the kids take their tiny triumphs and they go up there. And these are 11th and 12th graders. And they put things up there that they're proud of. And because they're showcasing it in my room, guess whose room they want to go to? Mine. Because I am caring about their success and what they're doing. It doesn't mean they have to have an A. I want to celebrate every little win with them. And because they see that and it's connected together, they say, oh, well, I want to connect with you because you celebrate me and you see me and my success as a person, as an individual. And that's important. And also, we encode that into memory. They're going to remember how you made them feel. And also, please, with the tiny triumphs, I just want to say it does not have to be an A. I like to frame it as let's just try to be 1% better at something. What did you get 1% better at this week? And more kids are likely to share when you frame it as what are you 1% better at? And they will share. There are also, the other thing is, if they feel like they have nothing to share, you can also call out their strengths. Thrively has another wonderful tool that actually measures student strengths. And you can use that to get the strengths of all your kids and then call out those strengths when you see it. It helps you individualize the beauty that each learner is bringing to the table. Whether they're super analytical, whether they're super creative, this strengths tool will show you those things. So when you see them, you can call them out in another person and share those strengths. Now, I have a few bonus items that I'm going to give you really quickly. They're in this. They're explained very precisely, but they're for class climate. If you improve the climate of your room, it becomes a place where relationships can grow. And there's quite a few of them. I'm just going to show them to you really quick. There's the peak end rule. That means end every class on a high note. If you end it on a high note, they're going to remember it when they leave out of the room. Also, choice menus. When you feel like you're in control, you're more likely to open up. And Daniel Pink wrote a lot about that in his book, Drive. Another climate thing is making sure you don't say, hey, I need you to replace directives with invitations. Instead of saying, would you be open to experimenting with, would you, instead of saying, do this. Because if you're not telling someone, they can't buck the system when it becomes an invitation. And also labeling feelings. If you see a kid's upset, do you know just by saying, hey, I see you're upset, that helps their amygdala, the fight, flight, freeze, and flop, calm down, and they're more likely to become regulated to talk to you. Just name the feeling. And if it's wrong, they'll correct you and then say the new feeling that they give you because it lowers amygdala activity. And then also, this is a big one. When a kid does complain, like, oh my gosh, we have to read this right now, and say, hey, I see that you really value getting things done quickly, and change what they're complaining about into value statements, because then you're showing them you don't have to complain. You can take this from a point of strength about your own individuality and the things you care for. So I want you to think of your hardest to reach student. What do they need most right now? They need to be seen. They need to be valued. They need to be believed in. And most of all, they need you. One relationship can change a life trajectory. And because you guys came here and you got more tools, you're more likely to do that. I want to thank everyone and feel free to keep in touch.
Is before we get to a few questions, I want to be able to think about putting today's learning into practice. And I want to make sure that everyone is aware of a support educators can actually use right away in Thrively right now. So inside of the Thrively platform, there is on the right side of the dashboard, you'll find the Teacher Resource Center. So this space provides educators with how-to videos, guidance documents, core resources to support just your implementation and usage of Thrively. So instead of wondering where do I actually start, you'll have a concrete place and tools in a centralized place to help you on your Thrively journey. Because one of the things that Kathleen talked about and what we've learned is that real change doesn't come from one powerful webinar moment. It comes from what happens after the webinar, right? In our classrooms, in the conversations we're having, in the strategies that we're implementing, and in those small weekly decisions that shape a student's experience. And that's what the Teacher Resource Center actually exists to do, to support you in that particular work. So with that in mind, we have time for just a few questions. One question I have, or just it goes back to the adults. And so one question is, what advice would you give to educators who feel discouraged themselves while trying to inspire their students and those connections?
Yeah, so that's one of those very simple things. Yes, great stuff. It's always great. So when you feel dysregulated, first of all, I want to say don't ever try to form a great relationship when you're feeling dysregulated. It's important to take care of yourself. And I have a very simple way to do it. Educators in the room, please listen because you're guilty of this. We all are. I talked to a new teacher today in the hallway and she said, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read this book. And I was like, awesome. When are you going to read it? This summer. What? Summer's like, wait, what? We're in February, March, April, May, June. What? And she's like, yeah, I don't have time. I've got papers to grade. I've got stuff to do. Remember how I said when you show that you want to set a goal and you do stuff, your students are more likely? I said, well, why don't you set a goal to read it in class and read with your students? And she was like, I can't do that. Yes, you can. Educators, you have to take care of yourself, set goals, and then tell them to your students. If you want to write a book, start writing it. Literally do a page. You want to learn to bake sourdough bread, literally do it and then share it with your students. They'll hold you accountable. But again, that shows your humanity, that you're not just the expert on your content, that you are a learner. Don't delay it. It's because we delay ourselves and we put all ourselves. I know it's noble. I know it's great to give your all for someone, but here's the reality. If you give your all, but they never see you as human, are they going to connect with you? Answer is no. So for that, the answer to his question is one, be human. If you're not feeling good, literally name the emotion. Say, hey, kids, I'm not feeling great today, but I still love you anyway. I just want you to know it's a rough day. You're allowed to have bad days. When you're more honest and you're more human, you're telling your students they don't have to be perfect and it's okay for them to be too.
No, thank you for that, Kathleen. And so I'm mindful of time, and we want to invite everyone to keep this learning going through just a few upcoming webinars that we have at Thrively. Like each of these sessions are actually going to build on what we call our conditions for learning. And that's our core four: strengths, well-being, hope, and connections. You can scan the QR code on the screen to register for any of these upcoming sessions or shared with a colleague. Remember, at the onset of this webinar, you will receive everything that we talked about in a follow-up email, so you'll be able to review that at your own time. And lastly, that brings us to the end of our time today. First, I want to thank you, Kathleen. Every time that I sit and listen, I learn, unlearn, and relearn a little bit more about this work. So thank you for the gift of your time and just the resources that educators can bring to their classrooms tomorrow to be able to move the work forward. And I also want to give a shout out to those of you that are listening live and those who will watch this in playback for just the work you do each and every day to support students and families. And so looking ahead, we invite you to stay connected with us. You can follow us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on X, and you can visit us on thrively.com/classroom for, again, free resources, for research insights, and for practical strategies you can begin using right away. And we always like to hear your story, so please tag us, share your experiences, and let us celebrate alongside you as your students grow and they thrive. And as you return to your classrooms and your schools, I remind us of that one simple but powerful question: 4 words: what's wrong with you, right? Because that question doesn't just change conversations, it changes how we think, it changes how we engage, and it changes how we build those deep relationships and connections. Again, my name is Dr. Marion Smith Jr., and on behalf of Team Thrively and Cathleen Beachboard, it has been a joy to spend this time with you today. And until next time, let's continue to humanize learning together by creating those strengths-based, joyful, and hopeful learning environments that create meaningful connections and relationships that strengthen student educational outcomes. So thank you all for your time.